The November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Arlington Board of Zoning Appeals, which is also known as the BZA. I am Inta Malice, Chair of the Board. The Board is made up of 5 citizens appointed by the Circuit Court. In addition to myself, we have Vice Chair Paul Melnick and members Judy Freshman, Portia Clark, and Lindsay Arthurs. Also present is the professional staff, including Blake Bowen, Board of Zoning Appeals Coordinator, Stephen Rissy, the Zoning Supervisor.
Okay.
I think we need to mute a mic. Supervisor Cliff Hogan, Assistant to the Zoning Administrator, Arlova Vaughn, Zoning Administrator, Ann Golsky, Assistant County Attorney, and Patty Petrosini, Assistant to the BZA. Thank you for joining us this evening. Before we start, we will explain how the BZA makes its decisions and how we will conduct the hearing tonight. For the safety of our board members, county staff, applicants, and participating community members, we are meeting in a virtual format, and all participants are joining the meeting remotely. We are legally authorized to hold this virtual meeting based on the governor's executive order, legislation adopted by the Virginia General Assembly, and the Arlington County Board's Continuity of Operations Ordinance adopted in March of 2020. Before we call our first case, I will share with you some general information about the Board of Zoning Appeals and then some ground rules on how we will conduct our virtual meeting. The board's powers are prescribed in the Code of Virginia and are set out in further detail in the county's zoning ordinance adopted by the county board. The Board of Zoning Appeals does not have the power to rezone property or to amend the regulations set forth in the ordinance. That authority rests with the county board. This board does have the authority to do 3 things. 1, we can approve use permits that allow modification of placement requirements of structures in 1 and 2 family lots where there is no option in the zoning ordinance to allow such modifications. 2, we can grant variances from the specific requirements of the zoning ordinance. And 3, we can decide appeals of decisions of the zoning administrator. When approving use permits, the Board of Zoning Appeals may impose conditions that it deems necessary in the public interest, including limiting the duration of the use permit. In order to approve a use permit, the law requires that the board find that the proposal meets certain conditions and that the use permit will not adversely affect the health or safety of persons residing in the neighborhood, will not be detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to property or improvements in the neighborhood, and will not be in conflict with the purposes of the master plans and land use and zoning related policies of the county. To do this, the BZA shall consider 1, whether the modification will promote compatibility of development with the surrounding neighborhood because the structure's overall footprint size and placement are similar to structures on properties surrounding the lot in question. And 2, whether the modification will help preserve natural landform, historic features, and/or significant trees and foliage. When granting variances, the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove by preponderance of the evidence that the improvements will meet these following criteria. Whether the strict application of the ordinance would unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property and that granting the variance would alleviate a hardship due to a physical condition relating to the property or improvement thereupon at the time of the effective date of the ordinance. Whether the granting of the variance would alleviate a hardship by granting a reasonable modification to the property or improvement thereon requested by or on behalf of a person with a disability, and whether the property for which the variance is being requested was acquired in good faith and any hardship was not created by the applicant. The board also considers whether the variance granted will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property and nearby properties in the proximity of the geographic area. That the condition or situation of the property concerned is not so general or recurring in nature as to make reasonably practical the adoption of an amendment to the ordinance. that granting the variance will not result in a use that is not otherwise permitted on the property or change the zoning classification of the property, and that the relief or remedy obtained through the variance is not available through a special exception process as provided for under the zoning or subdivision ordinance. When deciding appeals of the zoning administrator, the board must use its judgment to determine if the administrator was correct. Now for tonight's meeting procedure. The staff report for each case on tonight's agenda can be found on the BZA website. Staff has placed a link to the agenda in the chat section of the session. If you have not seen the report for your case, you may wish to review it before your item is called. Staff has also placed a link in the chat for supplemental material received after the staff reports were prepared. The order of our meeting is as follows. First, cases will be called and staff will give a brief report and provide their recommendation. Following that, board members will ask any questions of staff that they may have. Next, applicants or their representative will be given an opportunity to make comments to support the application or appeal. Then, if there are speakers for the item, we will call them one at a time. After we hear from speakers for and against the proposal, the board may permit the applicant a brief opportunity to clarify any points. The board may also ask questions of any speakers, but we do not permit and will not condone any cross-examination or direct questioning by others. We have deemed the following time limits for applicants and speakers to be sufficient. 20 minutes for applicants of appeal, 5 minutes for applicants of use permit and variances, 3 minutes for speakers representing organizations, and 2 minutes for those speaking as individuals. After the board has gathered all the information we need and has discussed the case, we will decide the matter by voting on a motion duly made and seconded. A majority is needed to approve any motion. Any appeal from the decision of this board must be made to the circuit court in accordance with state law. Here are a few specific instructions about tonight's virtual meeting. We are conducting this meeting via a website from the county website via a Microsoft Teams link. There's also a dial-in option for those who wish to use it. If board members, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For those joining via Teams, please turn off your video feed. Only board members will leave their cameras on. When called upon to speak, turn on your camera and unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is located on the meeting command bar. The moderator does not have the ability to unmute you. If you are dialing in by phone, press *6 to unmute. The meeting chat is active for presenters or board members who need technical assistance only. The meeting chat should not be used for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for more information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Board members, if you wish to be recognized on an item, please seek recognition verbally as usual, or you have the option to use the raised hand function. In either case, once you have been recognized, you may unmute yourself. All voting tonight will be taken via roll call. Applicants and public speakers, you will be called upon by county staff at an assigned time. Pre-registration to speak at today's hearing was requested. We will accommodate any additional speakers only if time permits. Public comment will take place within the time frame stated earlier, the same as we would at an in-person meeting. During public comment, a speaker timer will be displayed on the screen by staff. If you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide an audible warning when 30 seconds are remaining. You will be muted when your time has concluded. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county's website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Freedom of Information Act requirements. After your case of interest is heard, you are welcome to stay for the balance of the session or leave at your convenience. This concludes the introductory remarks. Board members, I have 3 cases that I will ask staff to call now. These represent applications that are complete, have neighborhood support, and have no known issues. I also am checking to see if the applicants for these cases are present, and I believe they are. The cases that I am proposing that we vote on in a block group are V-11705-21-UP-1, V-11708-21-UP-1, and V-11709-20-UP-3. Mr. Bowen, will you call these cases, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. A brief question on the last case. I believe you meant V-11709-21-UP-3. You said 20. So I just want to clarify.
I am looking at my staff report.
Oh, well, then there might be a Scribner's error on that. It should be 21.
All right. Let's see if that number appears elsewhere in the report. It's in the proposed resolution, it says 20. And in the motion, it says 20.
Okay, we should correct that to be 21, just for the sake of record keeping.
And let's just see what the agenda said.
The agenda online says 21.
Yeah, 11707-21. Yeah, so it's just the staff report that needs correcting.
Okay, noted.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and read those 3 cases now if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, absolutely. The first case is V-11705-21-UP-1. It is a use permit request by Joe and Sabrina Riley, the owners, to permit a right side setback of 5.1 feet to the rear screen porch, 4.1 feet to the eave instead of 8 feet to the rear screen porch, 5 feet to the eave as required, regarding a new rear screen porch to an existing one-family detached dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 6040 20th Street North. The second case is V-11708-21-UP-1, a use permit by Timothy Hartman and Patricia Gruson, the owners, to permit a right side setback of 4.2 feet to the wall and eave instead of 8 feet to the wall, 5 feet to the eave as required, and an aggregate side yard width of 16.5 feet instead of 18 feet as required in the R6 zoning district regarding 2-story right side addition to an existing one-family detached dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 117 North Oakland Street. The third and final case in the group motion is V-11709-21-UP-3. It is a use permit request by Robert Rolschalt and Michelle Tolbert, the owners, to permit a left side setback of 7.3 feet to the front porch, 6.8 feet to the wall of the rear addition, 6.8 feet to the rear screen porch, and 3.4 feet to the areaway, instead of 7.4 feet to the front porch, rear additions, and rear screen porch, 3.7 feet to the areaway from the left side property line as previously approved by the BZA, regarding after-the-fact approval for additions previously approved by the BZA in January 2021 for a new front porch, rear screen porch, 2-story rear and side addition, left side areaway on an existing one-family dwelling in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 309 South Irving Street.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. I've confirmed that the applicants are with us. Mr. Bowen, you are not aware of any speakers?
For these 3 cases, no, I'm not.
Is there anyone here tonight that wishes to speak on any of these three cases? Thank you. Ms. Freshman?
I will move, and in the three cases that were called, do I need to list them again?
I don't think so.
I'll move approval of all three cases as detailed by Mr. Bowen.
I second.
Thank you. Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Arthurs. Is there any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The motion to grant the 3 use permits with conditions is approved. Thank you. Mr. Bowen, will you call the next item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Our next item is a carryover item. It is, just one moment while I advance the presentation. It is, no, sorry. It is V-11647-21-UP-1. It is a use permit by Mohammed Sohail Arzu, the owner, to permit a street setback of 20 feet to the wall from South Monroe Street and to permit a street setback of 24.3 feet to the wall from South Walter Reed Drive regarding a new front 2-story addition in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 1809 South Monroe Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions. An alternative resolution has been provided should the BZA see fit to deny the request because they feel they do not have the material necessary to determine if the requested relief should be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Yes.
Any questions for staff?
Yes.
Ms. Freshman?
I'm noting that in the staff report, you referenced the fact that the drawings are not to scale. So I'm wondering if that's an issue or if you feel that the condition by the size of the addition is sufficient.
For that, I will defer to Mr. Rissy, who is here next to me, who actually wrote this staff report.
Okey-dokey.
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Freshman, I would say that we certainly probably can't use the standard condition language that you normally would that ties the drawings that are shown to the BZA to the approval. I think that you could possibly craft some other language to condition the size, but it might be difficult.
So does that mean that your item number 1 in the proposed resolution of approval is not sufficient? So it's in lieu of drawings?
Sorry, let me open and look at the first condition with you.
I mean, it has some parameters, but it's not our typical language.
So the first condition is the applicants agree that the footprint in the main dwelling may not be enlarged beyond 2,520 square feet, and the setback approved by the BZA for the proposed front addition may not be reduced from what has been requested and approved to the BZA 22 feet from the wall of South Monroe Street, and to permit a setback of 24.3 feet to the wall of South Walter Reed Drive. I mean, I wrote that condition because I think it does give you enough, but it's kind of up to you whether you're comfortable with that being everything.
I'm comfortable with it so long as you feel that the parameters are what would be reflected if we had the proper drawings to which we normally refer. I mean, if that's the way I read the condition, but that's why I wanted to ask and confirm that as opposed to having to say, okay, it's kicked again and we need better drawings or something like that.
I mean, I would certainly say that I think that there's more ambiguity even with that condition than you normally have when you have the drawings that you can refer to and condition. Yeah,
I agree. It surprises me that given that this is a deferral, that there wasn't an effort made to provide specific drawings. I suppose the applicant may have a reason for that, but, or it certainly is out of the ordinary. Thank you.
Ms. Arthurs? Questions for staff?
Yeah, I already lost my train of thought. Why was this deferred so many times? Because we didn't have drawings, or did you guys change your mind on this I can't remember.
so this one has been deferred a number of times now. I believe the first deferral request, I think we actually outlined them in the staff report. The first deferral request, I believe, was requested by staff because we felt that the advertisement did not adequately reflect the relief that was necessary. I believe the second deferral was requested by the applicant because he was not available the evening of the meeting that it got deferred to. And I'm wondering.
It was deferred because we did not grant the variance.
And yes, last time it was heard, the variance was denied, but there was a motion to defer the use permit so that the applicant could make some changes such that the variance would not be required, and you could test to see whether a use permit could be sufficient.
Thank you. I did not remember that.
Quite a complicated history on this one.
I was there for all of it, though. That's the distressing part.
I agree that Ms. Freshman raised a good point, because does that mean that 20 feet, 22 feet could run the whole length of the front facade?
This is Mohammed Arzu.
Not your turn yet, Mr. Let me just talk to staff first, then we will call on you.
Okay.
I would say that staff would certainly bristle at the idea that this approval would provide for that, but I think that we might have less teeth in enforcing alternatives than what you may expect or what we may otherwise.
Yeah, I would be uncomfortable right now as things stand that we could predict what could actually be built.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Freshman.
So the second condition restricts the footprint to 80 square feet. So I guess if staff is recommending approval with these two conditions, I'm okay with it, but I think it sends kind of a relaxed signal that when the variance was denied and the deferral was given in order to create a new plan that didn't require a variance, we only sort of kind of have that. And two conditions are proposed by staff, which seem to get us to the same place, but perhaps the applicant, when he has the opportunity, can explain why he failed to provide the appropriate drawing, given that there were a few weeks in which to do so.
Madam Chair?
Is that Mr. Melnick?
It's Nate, yes. So I'm in agreement, because I think it's very important for us to be very definite and very clear especially in our resolutions. And I think there would need to be a compelling reason why we don't have drawings of what's actually being proposed here and what we're approving. So I'd like to hear that if anyone has it.
Okay, well, let's hear, are we, if there's no other questions for staff, let's hear from the applicant.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Zhu.
So this was deferred 3 months ago. So I have provided all the new drawings. It's very simple drawings per your suggestion, board suggestion, and recommendations from 3 months ago. I've shrunk my proposed addition from 170 square feet to only 80 feet, just to bring it down to my cap, my footprint. So now I'm in the exact 11. What was that? In the 2520 square feet cap. But I did show on my on the lot coverage all the calculations, and on the plot, and I also updated the front elevation, the floor plans, showing it's 10 by 8 addition, which is 80 square feet. From 172 went down all the way to 80 square feet. On the plot, I showed on the right side from the Walter Reed side, I do not need that setback 24.3. I'm okay over there. Only thing I'm asking is for the from the Monroe Street side, 22 feet square feet. I mean 22 feet setbacks. So I did show all those in my drawings. I'm not sure what drawings, I did upload all of them on the BZA site. So I'm hoping you're looking at those, all the new drawings.
So we're looking at the plats.
Okay.
And the plats look like they have something hand drawn in and with slash marks across it.
Yeah, that's the concrete patio. That's where I'm drawing it. That's where I'm building it. On the right side, before I had the on my previous plot, I was asking for setbacks of 24.3, I think, from the Walter Reed side. But I don't need that anymore because my proposed addition is much smaller now. But in the front, from the Monroe Street, I need 22, so I can be symmetrical. My wall can be symmetrical. The front facade can be symmetrical to. It's only one corner where you see the dimension of 22. That's the only corner because I have a hardship. My front is narrows. It narrows as we.
So, Mr. Asu, the 24.3. You're saying you're not asking for that?
Yes, I'm not asking for that because
How do we know that in this drawing?
Because I didn't ask for what is showing existing. My existing wall, the existing house is 24.3 from the Walter Reed side, but in the addition, which I'm proposing is I because I have shifted my addition towards the left.
Well, so where does your addition start?
Where you see the lines, it starts where the letter C is, C-O-N-C, the concrete patio. I label as C-O-N-C is concrete patio.
And what is that dimension?
That's 10 by 8.
No, what is that dimension from Walter Reed?
It's over 25 feet. It's at least, I would say, at least 26 feet.
How do we know that?
I didn't mark it because I was over that setbacks anyway, so I didn't. Maybe I should have marked it, or I'm letting you now. I can, if you want, I can submit a new plot, but I don't need that,
I understand what you're saying, but it's somewhat unclear as to where that addition ends.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe I should have put this another line over there where it, I'm missing one line of that on the right side where the ends.
Yeah.
But C, where the letter C is, that's where it starts actually, that or ends or start, at both corners.
Okay.
But it's much larger, much longer. It's more than 25 feet. At least 26 feet, and that's the reason I didn't, as opposed to before when my plot from 3 months ago when I did mention 24.3 I need, but because I didn't need it, so that's why I didn't write it.
So here's the thing: is that we could not, from this, I don't know even how staff would know what we approved.
What you suggested last time was that if I get, bring it down to my allotted square footage, which is 25 in my cap of a footprint, then, and also which I did, of course, and so the only thing left is that 22 feet. Previously, I was asking 20 feet from the Monroe Street setbacks, but now because it's much smaller addition, so I'm asking actually more, 22 feet. And it's because,
I see that. All right, well, let's think about this. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Lindsay, do you have your hand up? No.
I do.
Okay.
Is this addition going to be, there's an addition, and then is this a full renovation of the interior of the house as well?
Not the full renovation of the interior. It's going to be connected to my ground floor level and the first floor level. Just going to make a living area and the rec room a little larger.
Okay. It looks like some of the objections from your neighbors are that there are multiple families living here. This looks like a single family house. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is a single family. However, I do have a friend's family living in the back, and also I was according to the I'm in the process of, I've submitted all my the interior of the video actually to the zoning. Because they asked me about same thing about who's living in the back. So I told them. They said, okay, we're gonna we'll make your house accessory dwelling, which was one of the ordinance passed by the county on May 18, 2019. So I submitted everything to them, and they're in the process of changing the classification of my house.
So
I mean, really, it's a friend of mine because I don't need the whole thing, so I just I said they were in need, and I said you guys can stay there.
So that accessory unit is not shown on these plans, is it?
No, it's a one house. It's not like an addition house. Just on the back of it. It's the same address. Everything is the same. It's just that I have family there, just staying there.
I'm a little so you said you did a video?
Yes, they were asking me to send a video of it because of COVID, and I sent them a video to them, and so they're going to change it to the accessory dwelling.
No, I don't think that's how the accessory dwelling works. I think there's a different.
Accessory needs to be a separate building. This is one building.
Or with separate, heating and cooling, and I'm a little concerned that it does appear like this has more than one family living in it. When do you expect to get approval from zoning to have a second unit here?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
When do you expect to get approval from zoning to have a second unit here?
They may have already changed it. I don't know. I sent them a video, so I can call again and see where they're at, and then because I have called them several times. But I've left messages. I haven't gotten called back, but I'm going to call them again tomorrow. However, this proposed addition has nothing to do with the with that changing of the classification of my house. That's.
Well, actually, it does in a way.
I'm sorry.
You know, if your current use is illegal, we would not want to grant a use permit that would further an illegal use.
No, it is all. Are you saying illegal?
Yes, having a second unit in this building would be considered an illegal use.
No, I was told it's going to be classified as an accessory dwelling. That's what the county ordinance.
But it's not currently classified as an accessory unit. Is that correct?
I'm going to check with them. I was told they're in the process of doing it. I can check on that.
Ms. Freshman?
Which I didn't know about it either until they told me about this thing. So.
Okay, I don't think the accessory dwelling is within our jurisdiction, but I think it's important because it was raised by the neighbors. And at this point, I'm becoming increasingly uncomfortable, less comfortable with the staff's noble effort at conditions. And I would say we either need very specific drawings that have all the measurements that we've requested, or that we deny it and not try to address the accessory dwelling, which I agree. It does not, it sounds like it's two families living in one dwelling, and that isn't permitted.
But I mean, I don't know how that the proposed addition. It's not that I'm building it for another family. It's just for my use. And I mean, the whole house is for my use. But the addition definitely. I mean, it's not like bedrooms or anything like that. It's a small front of the existing house.
Can I turn to Mr. Rissy? Are you handling this one, or is this one Mr. Bowen?
We're both working on it, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. My question, are you aware of this accessory unit issue?
Personally, I'm not aware that an accessory dwelling unit application has been submitted. It's something that we can certainly look into, but I don't have that information at hand right now. Okay.
So is this the first you're hearing about this accessory unit?
Is the first I'm hearing of the accessory dwelling.
Okay, thank you. So I think what I'm hearing is that at a minimum, we are considering a deferral for more specific drawings as to what exactly would be what would be built here, you know, normal dimensions that we could approve as we normally do with reference to drawings. Is that what I'm hearing as a minimum?
Yeah.
And then the second would be any clarification on the accessory dwelling unit. I'm a little not sure about this, but if there is an illegal use here, whether our granting a use permit is appropriate.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Melnick.
If this is deferred, you know, perhaps the county can just confirm with us about the status of the accessory dwelling issue.
Okay. All right. Do you follow that, Mr. Arzu?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last thing.
Number one is we would need better drawings that actually show exactly what is going to be built so that we can reference that in the motion. And number two, we would want more information about what the county's position on this accessory dwelling unit is.
When you say better drawing on that, I'm trying to understand what more drawing, except that I'm missing that one line on the concrete patio where we're building a proposed addition. Would that be sufficient if I show you where it starts or end?
Madam Chair, in my opinion, they need to be professionally drawn. I need someone who knows how to draw up to scale, and that's not something that you do yourself, because if this is approved, it's going to be approved referencing an official document, and it has to be, it will show the setbacks, it will show the precise dimensions of whatever you're proposing to build. So it isn't something that you can just hand draw on a plat and have it be an official document. It needs to be professionally done.
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
The 22 feet and the 25 feet is actually was drawn by the professional surveyor. That's what when I was when I told them that this is how much dimension, how much setbacks I need. So they measured it, and they had this 22 and 25 feet. But on the other side, where the Waltery side is, that something got missed.
So this drawing that looks like it was done with a pencil, it does not look like a professional drawing.
No, because they asked me where am I building, so I showed them the pencil that this is where this is my proposed addition is going to be. So I mean, because if something is not there, so they couldn't have they can't draw something which is not there. They can only. I told them this is how much setbacks I need, so they measured it.
So, Mr. Arzu, you have very professional floor plans here. All we're looking for is is at the same professional level on this plat that shows with dimensions to scale what you're proposing to build.
Yeah.
And Madam Chair.
Mr. Miller?
Including a date, excuse me.
And I would say also, and all the drawings need to reflect, what the plans currently are, including the floor plans. So if the front is going to move over, just so that not only the plats, but all the plans match the way it actually is proposed to be. Because if we're going to approve it, then we're going to be approving all the plans. I just wanted to make that point.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bourne. What do you mean by all the plans?
Mr. Arzu, I think, Mr. Rissi, do you think you can cover this with him offline in terms of, I think you understand what we mean. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So could you explain to Mr. Arzu offline after we make a deferral as to exactly what we're looking for?
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right, let's do it that way, Mr. Arzu. It's very difficult for us to explain to you without pieces of paper in front of us. So Mr. Rissi, after the approval, after we defer, you can get with staff and they can advise you as to what we're looking for specifically.
Okay. All right.
All right.
So we can talk about it tomorrow, Mr. Rissi?
I'm sorry?
I was just asking Mr. Rissi if you can talk about it tomorrow or now. I mean,
Okay,
offline now or tomorrow?
No, we're not going to talk. He's not going to talk right now because he's got a hearing to run right now.
Okay.
So you can get in touch with his office tomorrow and set up an appointment to talk.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Rissi?
Our office is closed tomorrow for Veterans Day.
All right, it's not going to be tomorrow. Friday will be the first opportunity to call because tomorrow's a holiday.
Okay.
Is there an emotion? Ms. Freshman?
Yes, on the case of V-11647-21-UP1, I move deferral to the December 8, 2021 BZA hearing for the purposes of providing specific plat and other relevant drawings on the proposal.
I second.
Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Arthurs. I agree with your motion. Do we want to add that staff research status of the accessory dwelling? Or is just
I don't object to it, other than the fact that I don't think, other than the neighbors raised it, but I don't think it's an issue for what we're considering.
okay?
But it would be useful information given the amount of time we've spent talking about it.
Okay, so I won't ask to make it part of the motion, but Mr. Rizzi, could you note that that's a follow-up item?
So noted.
So we have a motion by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Arthurs to defer this item to our December 2021 hearing. Is there any further discussion? You know, and I assume there's no speakers here before we actually conclude here, but nobody's spoken up. So I'm going to go ahead and call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to defer to the December hearing passes 5-0. Mr. Bowen, will you call the next item, or Mr. Rissy, or? Oh, it's this one. Okay.
All right, we will conclude our switcheroo again. I will call the next item. The next item is an appeal by Ryan Biebel on behalf of Clarendon Regency 4 LLC. Oh, sorry, I didn't start with the case number. The next item is case number V-11703-21-APP-1, an appeal by Ryan Biebel on behalf of Clarendon Regency 4 LLC, the owners and district dogs, a tenant of the zoning administrator's determination that the boarding of 4 or more dogs is not permitted on an overnight basis on a lot located in the CO 1.5 zoning district on the premises known as 2801 Wilson Boulevard, RPC 18-010-016. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution affirming the zoning administrator's decision. We do have an additional speaker on this case, and that is Jacob Hensley, the tenant of the property.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Who's going to go first?
Zoning administrator would typically go first.
All right. Ms. Vaughn?
Good evening.
I hear you.
Do you not see me?
Now I see you. It always takes. Good evening.
Good evening. We're also joined, I can't remember if it was said at the beginning, by Ann Golsky in the county attorney's office. But I will start. I'm not going to take anywhere near 20 minutes. Ms. Golsky might have something more to add. If not, we'll be done and are available for questions.
Thank you.
So just to sum what's happening, the appellant requested a determination on April 27th of this year regarding the use of the subject property at 2801 Wilson Boulevard, located in the CO 1.5 commercial mixed-use zoning district, for a dog grooming facility, which would provide overnight boarding for up to 30 dogs. A determination was issued on June 25th. This determination stated that the boarding of more than 3 dogs overnight would be classified as a kennel and not permitted on the subject property. Kennels are defined in the Arlington County zoning ordinance, which I will shorthand as ACZO for the race to the appeal for brevity. They are defined in the ACCO as any lot or premises on which 4 or more dogs, more than 4 months of age, are kept. Kennels are also considered to be within the retail personal service use category. In mixed-use commercial districts, buildings or even individual businesses may contain multiple land uses, depending on the proposed activities occurring on site. However, all such land uses must be permitted if the full operation of the business is to be allowed. In this case, the animal grooming activity is permitted as retail personal service use But the overnight boarding for up to 30 dogs meets the definition of kennel, which is not allowed in the CO 1.5 zoning district. The ACZO is permissive, and in order to determine if a land use is allowed, the fundamental structure of the ordinance requires an affirmative indication that an activity is permitted. A logical and plain reading of the commercial district's principal use table is that the kennel land use does not have an individual row, and as a result is not permitted in any of these districts. Just for a little history, the kennel land use has only been allowed by right in industrial districts, and that has not changed since 1950 when the use was created. The changes that occurred in the structure of the zoning ordinance in 2013, which moved from the former pyramidal structure to using a series of tables, and then in 2015, which resulted in the creation of use categories, did not change the use permissions that have been in place for over 70 years. If the county board intended to expand where and how kennels were authorized, it would have done so, and no evidence to the contrary has been provided. When applying the provisions in section 12.2 to consider a similar use interpretation, the land use that would appear to be the most similar, an animal care facility, expressly excludes kennels in its definition, and the presence of overnight boarding for more than 3 dogs requires that I find the kennel land use to be the most similar. In instances where more than one regulation may apply, section 1.4 indicates that the most restrictive regulation must be followed, further supporting the determination that the land use is not allowed in the subject zoning district. Finally, the proposed zoning ordinance amendments to the commercial and neighborhoods form-based codes, which have been referenced in both the appellant's documents and the staff report. These amendments that will be before the county board, I believe on Saturday, are intended to improve the commercial real estate climate, offering increased flexibility and opportunities for the Columbia Pike corridor only, and do not change any long-standing policy with regard to the kennel land use, how it's interpreted, or where it's allowed. The Columbia Pike commercial and neighborhoods form-based codes work together with the ACZO, to establish use permissions. Both form-based codes include references to use categories, standards, and definitions found within the ACZO, and as a result, updates to both codes were necessary to facilitate the changes proposed on the Pike. The proposed text amendments to the ACZO that do refer to the kennel land use are solely meant to provide additional clarity around existing land use policy for areas outside of Columbia Pike. To some, I have no authority to change land use policy decisions made by the county board, but in the face of unclear or potentially conflicting zoning ordinance text, I'm empowered with the authority to make interpretations. In this instance, the interpretation that a business that provides overnight boarding for up to 30 dogs is classified as a kennel, and that kennels are not permitted land uses in the CO 1.5 district is consistent with both the plain language of the text and longstanding land use policy that has been in effect in Arlington County for over 70 years. Neither I nor the BZA, via an appeal decision, has the authority to change use permissions established in the zoning ordinance. That concludes my remarks.
Does Ms. Golsky have anything she wishes to add?
I do, Madam Chairman, thank you. Briefly, I just thought it would, on behalf of the zoning administrator, I would clarify that the zoning administrator's decision in this case by state statute is required to be presumed to be correct. And it's the burden of the appellant by state statute to prove the appellant has the burden of proof to rebut that presumption of correctness of the zoning administrator's decision by a preponderance of evidence, which generally means more likely than not. So by statute, that's the burdens and the presumptions that the board is required to apply.
Okay, thank you. Does that conclude the zoning administrator's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And do we have the applicant with us?
Yes, it's Ryan. I'm here, and then Jacob's also here. I'm going to speak.
Okay,
and
let's do some last names too. That'd be Ryan.
Oh yeah, my last name is Beeble.
All right.
And it's
you
Jacob Hensley.
And you also have Jacob Hensley with you. Okay, thank you.
So I'm gonna speak this turn, and then Jacob will be available for any questions. He's the business owner of District Dogs. So again, my name's Ryan, and I want to thank you, into Judy, Paul, Portia, and Lindsay, for taking this time and allowing us to be heard tonight. As our Loeb mentioned, I submitted a document, well, not as a Loeb, but I submitted a document with my appeal filing presenting the multiple reasons and fronts why the determination letter is incorrect. And I'm hopeful that each of you were able to read and absorb it. And in it, I also reference established Virginia case law and how zoning ordinances need to be interpreted so that I can further back up my evidence. During this process, I've interacted with Matt, Essie, Cliff, Blake, and Steven, and I want to say they've all been great. They've been available, responsive, professional, helpful, and even sympathetic. I want to say the county has good people on its team. I have not interacted with our Loeb at all, but I believe she's an extremely intelligent and professional person and a great zoning administrator. I want to be clear here that my information tonight includes nothing personal towards our Loeb or any other zoning team members. It comes with no ill will towards anyone with zoning. It comes with all due respect. So what I'm doing tonight is explaining how the determination is not in line with the zoning ordinance, how it's incorrect for a number of reasons, both per its written text and per its purpose and intent. On the flip side, the two reasons stated in the determination letter, A, that the commercial mixed-use table doesn't include a specific allowance for kennels, and B, that there's a decades-long policy to limit where kennels are allowed to be established, do not follow the text of the zoning ordinance, and I'm not sure what type of policy is being alluded to. The zoning ordinance is the document that communicates the county's land use policy, and if something isn't in the zoning ordinance, then I'm not sure it's in the county zoning policy. What I'm not doing tonight is trying to change the zoning ordinance. I know this is not the formal process for this. It's very clear what the appeal process is for, and I'm taking it very seriously. If I didn't wholeheartedly feel that she is incorrect, I would not be here tonight taking up anybody's time. Finally, before I begin providing my evidence here, I want to share that I've been a little bit miffed throughout this process, because I'm sitting here pointing out how the zoning ordinance does not prohibit allowable dog-related businesses from having dogs in the same buildings or spaces during the night. The zoning ordinance doesn't reflect this requirement pertaining to dogs, and I'm afraid if it did, it'd be bizarre. So if my position is logical as well as supported by the zoning ordinance, and with dog-related businesses not harming adjacent properties and commercial zones during the day, and sure as heck not harming them at night, I'm not really understanding why there seems to be so much pushback. There's outdoor bars and commercial zones where people are out and about until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, but apparently you better not have a building next door with 10 dogs asleep. I also want to say I've never participated in an appeal before, and I probably never will again, but our case just seems weird. At one point during the determination stage between filing and issuance, Cliff had advised that the draft letter, because Cliff would, I would touch base with Cliff periodically and get updates, that it was changed following a meeting with the county's attorney's office from being in agreement with our analysis to not. I was also asked twice if I'd consider dropping my appeal. And then we showed up last month at our scheduled hearing, and we couldn't proceed with it because not everybody showed up. And there also wasn't a staff report written. So again, I don't have any experience with this, but some things just seem odd. So many times I've asked myself and Jacob what's going on, because an appeal should be a straightforward process based solely on the written determination letter and the written zoning ordinance. And the 5 of you hear from both sides and then make a decision. As Ann alluded to, as the appellant, I'm already starting off at a disadvantage. The zoning administrator is correct unless I bring forth a preponderance of evidence. And it seems hopefully not that I'm going up against some other people and forces here too. And then we have that simultaneous work on the proposed amendments to the Columbia Pike form-based code, which I know you, INTA in particular, have done a ton of good work on in the past. Part of the proposed amendments to the form-based code, including adding kennel as a non-permitted use in the commercial mixed use table. And I'm not sure if this is just a coincidence. It's also interesting that the determination letter says that kennels are not permitted in commercial zones, yet there's a proposed text amendment being worked on that would change the text so that it states kennels are not permitted. And while we're on this form-based code topic, I think it's also interesting that staff is saying that animal care facilities that have dogs overnight are not kennels, but a different use. So I think this further supports our position that animal hospitals, vet clinics, animal grooming facilities, doggy daycares, and pet stores cannot become kennels on any given night when they have more than 3 dogs inside. These uses are specifically stated as allowed uses. These uses are not kennels, and these uses cannot become kennels during summer all nights, depending on if there's a 4th dog there. I know of no other use type that can change into another use type depending on the time of day, and then go back to the other use type, and so on, even though absolutely nothing with the use ever changes. So without further ado, the determination letter is correct that district dogs or any doggy daycare, grooming establishment, vet clinic, animal hospital, or pet store for that matter can be a kennel. The definition of a kennel is any lot or premises on which 4 or more dogs more than 4 months of age are kept. This definition does not include the words night, overnight, or any words remotely inferring that the word kept means nighttime or is only related to time of day. Period. End of story. If the term kennel, when written and put into the zoning ordinance 71 years ago, was to mean any place where more than 3 dogs were on a property overnight, the definition would have been written as such, and further would have needed to have been written as such in order to be enforced this way. So we have the plain and natural meaning of the text, which doesn't state that in order to be a kennel, you need to have dogs overnight. And if the rules of construction are applied to this definition, because the word kept is the only word that could be seen as abstruse or ambiguous, construction sure as heck doesn't lead to the conclusion that the determination letter has. Construction and interpretation must lead to a sensible meaning. It cannot lead to a result that is absurd, unreasonable, internally inconsistent, or incapable of operation. I think construction is easy in the case of this definition. It was inserted in the zoning ordinance in 1950 as the mechanism to enforce the newly enacted codes on anyone owning more than 3 dogs and anyone running a breeding kennel on their property. If someone wanted to own more than 3 dogs, they needed to, and still apparently need to, obtain a kennel license from the zoning administrator. And it's also clear that the inclusion of an age requirement in order to be a kennel leads to the conclusion that this definition was specifically written for the allowable quantity of dogs people could own. If someone's dog or dog had puppies, this person wouldn't suddenly be in conflict with state and county animal law or zoning law. It's not like this age limit was placed in the definition because puppies don't bark or go to the bathroom until after they pass 4 months old, or where they cannot possibly be a nuisance to neighboring residents and properties until past 4 months. On the other hand, the determination's construction of the definition of kennel, which is that it's a blanket tag for anywhere 4 or more dogs over the age of 4 months are at night, leads to the following results. 1, doggy daycares, vet clinics, animal hospitals, and pet stores are actually non-permitted uses in commercial zones, even though they're explicitly stated as permitted, because how could any one of these places run a business, let alone be in business, where there is never a chance of a 4th dog being in the building during the night? And they're not allowed to obtain this much needed revenue to exist. 2, the hours of operation of these permitted businesses and the income potential of these permitted businesses is being restricted. Zoning ordinances are not meant to do either of these, and I don't believe they can. On any given night, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of kennels going on throughout the county, with 4 or more dogs on lots or inside buildings. The bottom line here with the kennel definition is that it does not state anything about the time of day, and there is absolutely no logical way to construe it and get to the meaning that kept means overnight. Here are some questions that would need to be answered for all dog-related businesses and dog owners in the county if the determination is correct. And I'm not just trying to prove a point here. In order for people to make sure they're not breaking the zoning ordinance, these answers need to be provided. 1, what time does overnight begin and what time does it end? 2, is it a time period, or does it just mean that a dog cannot sleep at the property it's at during a night? Because when people stay out late somewhere and go home at, say, 4 a.m., this isn't known as staying overnight. 3, what should an animal hospital do if there are already 3 dogs in the building and someone comes in with a seriously injured dog in need of immediate attention? What should a vet clinic do if they only have 2 dogs scheduled to be in the building overnight, but 2 other dogs come in that day that need unplanned procedure or care and need to stay at the clinic overnight? Does the vet have to pick which dog they like better to help out? Since they helped out both dogs, which would result in overnight stays, the vet clinic would become a non-permitted kennel. What should a doggy daycare do when the clock strikes whatever time overnight is and a dog owner is late to pick up his or her dog and they're over the 3-dog kennel limit? Again, any allowable use business that has 4 or more dogs inside overnight cannot suddenly become this different use and supposedly prohibited kennel use. Overnight care is an essential part of those businesses. You can't be an animal hospital, vet, or doggy daycare without this. Regarding doggy daycare specifically, many clients are first responders who need their dogs taken care of during the nighttime. These uses are not just allowable by interpretation, but allowable uses explicitly stated as retail personal service examples in the zoning ordinance, specifically Article 12. It makes absolutely no sense how the kennel label is being applied, and is in direct conflict with the purposes and intents of the zoning ordinance of the commercial mixed-use zones. Even if this was bizarro world and the zoning ordinance stated that 4 dogs could only be on the same Arlington property overnight if the property was an industrial one, the zoning ordinance permits kennels in many of the commercial mixed-use zones, based on the use classification system, the use table, and Article 12. Fact, kennels in the retail personal service use category. The zoning ordinance states it as such. Fact, kennel use is captured under the all other retail personal service uses row in the commercial mixed use district table. This row does not state all other retail personal service uses except for kennels. Doggy daycares are an example of a retail personal service use in Article 12. And for good measure, animal care facilities, vet clinics, and animal hospitals, which don't and cannot meet the definition of kennel, either during the day or during the night, are allowed either by right, via site plan, or use permit in 15 of the 19 commercial zones, with the use standard that everything must take place completely inside, but don't have 4 or more dogs inside at nighttime. Now let's take this a little further. The determination states that kennels are not permitted because there is not a specific allowance for them, except in the industrial zones. First, there is a how-to guide in the zoning ordinance telling people how to understand if a use is allowed or not in a particular zone. And it does not state if you don't see a specific use type listed in a row in a use table to look through all other district use tables to see if your use has an individual row there. And if it does have an individual row in another district, then the use you're looking for is not permitted in the district you're after. 2, Arlington County was nice enough to publish frequently asked questions to further explain how the zoning ordinance works. These FAQs state that uses in each category will be captured by an all other row unless a certain use has standards associated with them in that district. Further, the FAQs state that uses without standards specific in a certain zone may no longer be listed individually in the use table. 3, the use tables themselves state that uses not permitted will have a blank cell next to them. The various district use tables have a ton of uses listed with all blank cells showing that they are not permitted at all in a certain district. Why doesn't kennel have an individual row in the C district's use table then if it's not permitted? And 4th, the retail personal service use category, which includes 4 living animal uses and 1 dead animal use, explicitly stated as examples, does not state a kennel as a use not included. 12.2.1F, the uses not included section, provides a cross-reference to uses that might first appear to be included in a particular category, but which in fact are not intended to be included in that category and are explicitly included in a different use category. Is the determination letter claiming that there's an error with the zoning ordinance? The zoning ordinance was completely reformatted in May of 2013. 6 months later, amendments were made to correct technical errors. In 2014, more amendments were for technical errors. In February 2015, they put everything into a use category system. Then 9 months later, more corrections were made for technical errors. In 2016, more corrections to technical errors. In 2017, the same. I don't think anyone knows what this outmoded kennel definition is for, but like I explained before, it definitely cannot be for the way the determination letter applies it. I also want to touch on the staff report for this case, which has some more incorrect assertions. First, though, our issue isn't just that the letter erroneously concludes that a kennel is not permitted, it's that it also erroneously concludes that district dogs can be a kennel. The staff report says the 2013 and 2015 amendments weren't intended to create substantive changes to use permissions. Is allowing dogs to be in the same place at night that they're allowed during the day substantive? I want to know nothing in my argument relates to a similar use interpretation. We know the uses, they're retail personal service. Say a lack of clarity in the organizational structure of the zoning ordinance cannot change adopted land use policy. And I'm not sure what this adopted land use policy thing is that we keep hearing. It's my understanding adopted or land use policy is adopted through the zoning ordinance, which is what this appeal is based on. It states the definition of a kennel applies both broadly to any lot or premises, and I agree, it does. So why isn't every apartment building in Arlington classified as a kennel during the night if it's saying every business is a kennel? Or why isn't every coffee shop, restaurant, or bar that allows patrons to bring dogs a kennel at night? If there were still farms, and maybe there are these allowed to have hundreds of cows but no more than 3 dogs? Because kennels are not permitted in any of the agricultural districts. Permitted uses are expressly authorized, and Table 721 shows all the permitted uses and does not include kennels as a permitted use. This is just flat out wrong with how you administer and look at use tables. By the way, this use table also doesn't include a specific allowance for many other stated retail personal service uses, such as body art, studios, fitness, wellness, psychics and mediums, bike shops, doggy daycare, hair, nail tanning, day spa, urgent care, and taxidermists. And that makes me chuckle. Apparently, cutting up dead animals and preserving them with chemicals is allowed in Arlington's vibrant commercial mixed-use zones, but the zoning ordinance allowing 4 live dogs to sleep in the same building would be crazy talk. When an individual land use is not permitted in any of the zoning districts in the principal use table, it consistently is not listed as an individual row. This was another statement in the staff report. Again, this is flat out false. As I pointed out before regarding many uses not permitted anywhere in a district being stated in a row with all blank cells, there are many of these throughout a bunch of the district use tables. It says, I'm asking how a kennel use is regulated more stringently than animal care facilities. All animal care facilities must be conducted only inside of a building. Same for a kennel, except that can be outside in the M1 and M2 districts. Articles 1.3 and Articles 1.4 have nothing to do with this appeal. There aren't any conflicting provisions here. The problem is nothing in the zoning ordinance aligns with the determination here. The bottom line is the determination is far from being in line with the plain language of the text. And the claim at the end, which was repeated a lot, that this is a requested use change permission is not correct. I agree. No one here can change use permissions, but my appeal is because the determination letter does not follow the zoning ordinance. What you, the BZA, appointed by the circuit court, does have the authority to do is decide who's correct here. In closing, I want to thank you again for hearing me speak. This is not just an appeal for district dogs, but one for all stakeholders in the county. Zoning's application of the word kennel is nonsensical, and it's harming many current and future businesses, all dog owners, the tax base, and the county's push for more walkable neighborhoods where the much needed services occur close to where many people live. How could anyone construct a definition and arrive to the conclusion that Arlington County is intending for nighttime dog care to be as far away as possible in industrial zones where residents don't live? And it might come up for discussion here, so I want to state it now. District Dogs is still an aggrieved party to the determination, even though they decided to try and make business work if they can only have 3 dogs any given night. Depending on the time of year, revenue from overnight care can make upwards of 40% of their total revenue. This is a lot of money, and it shows a lot of people who own dogs in need of overnight care. It's not just district dogs here. There are tons of aggrieved persons, current and future businesses, residents, and the county's tax base and goals due to this determination letter. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you, Mr. Beeble. Let's see how we want to proceed. Do we want to start with questions for the zoning administrator? Does anyone have any specific questions they would like to ask the zoning administrator? And right now, I don't see all my colleagues. I hope they're there. Maybe you take the picture down and I can see more people. There they are. Okay, great. Any questions for the zoning administrator? I'll ask one just to get it rolling. It took, by my count, maybe about 8 or 9 pages to explain your position as to why the to explain what the zoning ordinance says. Is there a remedy that you would suggest to make it more clear so that it didn't take 9 pages of explanation?
So the part of the text amendments that have been discussed that are occurring in concert with the Columbia Pike form-based code amendments, one of the changes that is being made at the same time is solely to to eliminate this confusion. So because a lot of their work was creating a new animal use, I believe called animal groom. I can't really, I've forgotten what it's called momentarily. But as a way to prevent this from happening in the future, the word kennel will now, if it's approved by the board on Saturday, have its own row with blank cells so that it's clear that this is a listed land use, and having a blank cell indicates it's not permitted in any of the districts in the commercial mixed use principal use table. So that the remedy is occurring in potentially a few days to eliminate this confusion.
All right. All right. Any questions for the applicant? I have one to get it started. Mr. Biebel, why did you request a determination letter if the zoning or you felt the zoning ordinance was clear? You're muted.
Sorry, I did trim my speech down, so I eliminated the background story to make sure I got in within 20 minutes. But Jacob started looking at Arlington last year, and I think he was talking to a zoning attorney who advised him that he would need a site plan amendment to do overnight boarding or something. So when Jacob got more serious, he reached out to me, and I looked in the zoning ordinance, and I just, A, I wasn't seeing that, and B, I wasn't seeing how he was a kennel or where kennels aren't permitted in the commercial zone. So I reached out to zoning. I talked to Matt Busing, and he connected me with Essie. And so I spoke with Essie, and she gave some initial feedback on why, and I just still wasn't seeing it. So Essie said, well, the process here would be to submit a determination letter, obtain it, and then go in front of the BZA. So we already knew essentially what was going to come back in the zoning determination letter.
So why did you feel you needed to get a determination letter?
Because Jacob's business, almost all of these businesses have more than 3 dogs sometime during the night. So
did you feel the zoning ordinance was, I thought your position was that the zoning ordinance was pretty clear, that it allows, overnight more than 4 animals.
Yes, I agree. But zoning was saying that we couldn't do it, and it's an important aspect for Jacob to open up a business.
Okay.
So it was either, well, we want to pay attention to zoning, so we're like, okay, I don't think this is accurate. This is how zoning is going to interpret his use and say district dogs, you cannot have more than 3 dogs during a night. The only thing we can do here is take this to the BZA and explain it and allow you to decide.
Okay. Let's go to Miss Arthurs.
This is for the zoning administrator. What is the basis for not allowing kennels in commercial mixed use areas? Like, what's the harm in it?
So that's a policy question. That's not a zoning question. So at some point, the county board decided that they felt they were appropriate in industrial districts. In the 1942 ordinance, something called establishments for boarding dogs, cats, and other animals were allowed by use permit. So it was never allowed by right. In the 1950, that phrase went away and kennel was born, and it was allowed by right with standards only in the 3 industrial zones. And they haven't, I don't think, studied it since, perhaps. I'm not sure. A lot could have happened since 1950, but it doesn't appear as though there's been significant, second look at that policy since then. It's just kind of been carried forward. Oops. Until this recent study on Columbia Pike, right? So that was one of the things that was expressly studied for that area as being introduced with a little more flexibility. So it could be signaling
a change in policy coming.
Right.
Ms. Freshman, do you have your hand up?
Well, yeah, that was sort of where I was going, because it seemed to me that if giving the kennel a line of its own with no permissions, with all blank, is a cleanup kind of, it sounds like it's a cleanup thing and a clarification, but it also sounds like, I thought originally that was the purpose, and that there wasn't actually any discussion during the discussion of Columbia Pike of including it. Is that correct? So, because I can't, as Ms. Arthur's question suggested, that maybe you were revisiting it, but then a decision after that study concluded no, not in any commercial district.
So I don't want to get too detailed. For the Columbia Pike study, a whole new land use was created called animal boarding, which is expressly being allowed on Columbia Pike. The main distinction is that it's referencing animals of all types, so it's not dogs, and it refers to boarding for a fee, so that there was a distinction being made between if someone in their home basically had a lot of dogs, which the kennel is more broad. It doesn't care if anyone pays for the boarding or not. It's just this many dogs overnight. For the pike, they created a new definition, so they left kennel exactly where it is, and said if you want to do animal boarding, which is the separate, slightly different thing, then it's allowed with certain use standards on the pike.
So, but does that mean that in theory, that particular interpretation and use could be extended more broadly in the county? Obviously with an amendment required, and not helpful in this particular case, but it sounds as if that there's some understanding of the need, which came up in the course of the Pike study. And if that need is thought to be germane, it could eventually extend even to the district where that's now the subject of this discussion. Not immediately, and not even soon, probably, given how zoning things go.
Yeah, certainly could. Okay. And I believe they've heard that feedback from others during this process. So.
Mr. Melnick.
So in your, for the applicant, there's a question for the applicant. So in your talk that you gave, the presentation you gave us, you were mentioning, it seems like you're problem, and the issues you're seeing are with the definition of kennel. You said that it's nonsensical, and is that what you're asking us to base our decision on? Is that it just doesn't make sense, this definition of kennel?
I am saying that the definition of kennel does not have anything to do with nighttime, overnight, any time of day, and that applying a permitted use like a doggy daycare as a kennel is incorrect per the zoning ordinance. And then for good measure, I was also saying that retail person, a kennel per the use table and per a lot of the other language in the zoning ordinance is actually allowed in the commercial mixed use zones. Did that answer your question, Paul?
Yeah, well, what would you say when it says the word kept? What do you think that should apply to?
Well, I think it applies to when you have dogs that don't have 24/7 care. You know, vets, animal hospitals, doggy daycares all have 24/7 care. I think I put it in my appeal filing that people keep cars in garages, keep things in storage, and maybe an animal shelter could be a kennel. I think breeding could be a kennel. But I also think that this definition is outmoded. It hasn't been paid attention to in about 71 years. And the application of it being a blanket tag for any dog-related business is just not correct and not in line.
I have a follow-up. So what you're saying about it should not apply to 24/7 care, but do you have any authority for that? Like, do you have any examples of where that's been found or how that's been applied? Any backup? You know, if you're saying that kept shouldn't apply to 24/7 care, is there any authority you have for that? You know, in the law, or ordinances, or just anything of that sort? Because we're dealing here with the ordinance. But is there anything you have to back that type of reading of the word kept up?
No, just based on logical plain text, and then when you construct it, and if you get to the fact that this construction leads you to essentially saying that these other dog-related businesses that are permitted, in fact, can't open up and operate, because none of them can exist if they're limited to never having more than 3 dogs. But sorry, I took your question as like what would my opinion be as far as what the word kept is?
Yeah, well, yeah. So you've got to prove by the preponderance of the evidence that the zoning administrator is wrong, and so that's what I was getting at. Is if you're going to prove by the preponderance, that putting forth evidence, I just wanted to know, with your proposed reading of the word kept, just what. I just wanted to make sure we were hearing all the authority that you had for that. And I appreciated your detailed memo, and the sites and everything, but is there anything, I just didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add about it not applying to 24/7 care of dogs.
Can I say something?
Mr. Beeble, would you like Mr. Hensley to try to answer that question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I just want to touch base on the word kept. There's also like nothing in the definition that states that kept means 24/7. For all, when we read it, kept could mean for 30 minutes. So I think Ryan's point was, why should we assume that the kept means overnight? There's no reference of time. There's no reference of how long, no reference of hours. So kept is a very ambiguous word. So there's really no even proof that shows that means overnight. And I also just want to say that like a 1950s kennel is a much different operation than a modern doggy daycare. We're staffed 24/7, like very intense HVAC, temperature controlled. It's not the industrial kennel use that was 70 years ago. So I don't think the definition should apply to a modern doggy daycare staffed 24/7 when you can have 50 dogs during the day, then at some magic time immediately you can only be 3. Like it does. That's why another reason we don't think the kennel definition applies to us because we're not a kennel. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Mr. Hensley.
Thank you.
Mr. Melnick, do you have more?
No, that's all for now.
All right. Ms. Vaughn, if a doggy daycare is a permitted use in this district,
Yes.
and in other city districts, right? So if there was a case where how do you know how in the ordinance they draw the line as to daycare versus night, or overnight? Is there like a line that is drawn? Because I know you're supposed to pick up your dog by night if you don't.
There is nothing explicitly written. I think, kind of going back to where these terms and how the interpretation has been made, it's kept, in our opinion, is about, I guess, sleeping or staying there for 24 hours at least.
Okay.
So when we are so there's a couple of things. When someone is asking, can I establish this business? We zoning staff ask a lot of questions about, how is it going to work? How many people are coming and going? What types of equipment do you use? We ask a lot of questions to try to get to how we classify it. So anything with dogs, we're going to be very explicit and kind of warn people. If you have 4 or more, we have to view it as a kennel. And so you have to be aware, we're informing people up front about the distinction that's being made. And so if you and your business are able to operate and have people pick up their dogs at the end of the day, and they're not, there's only 3 staying overnight, you can absolutely go wherever the table allows. So certainly we can't prevent people from breaking the law, but we're very clear up front about how we are going to have to interpret things. And so, go ahead.
Do doggy daycare centers have use permits?
No.
They don't have use permits
No.
that have hours of operation or any of that?
I believe in site plan districts, most of them are just permitted. I don't think there's a U.
So the idea that dogs must be picked up by midnight is something that you might discuss, but it's not something that's, written down somewhere.
Generally, if it was, an assumption that one could make is that they were concerned about the impact of having a lot of dogs, next to perhaps residential, and so noise and odor and any other things. So generally, we would hear about it as a complaint.
Okay.
And so then we investigate and find out, what's going on. So there's, we're hoping everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing, but we don't have resources to kind of go check.
But when you tell somebody that, they can have a doggy daycare, but you can't keep the dogs overnight, do you define that, or is that just understood?
I would think it's understood.
Okay. All right. Any other questions from my colleagues? Well, I can tell you what I'm thinking here is that while it required a labored explanation, it certainly seems like kennel is the operative use here. And that while it was somewhat labored in terms of explaining how to get there and staff recognizes that it should be more clear. I think going beyond that would be creating new policy that's not in existence now. Ms. Freshman?
Yes, I agree. I think that it's very instructive to hear what they've done on Columbia Pike, because it seems as if there's an opening for at least exploring options that might be a little less restrictive than saying they can only go down a 4-mile run in a warehouse, which of course is, among other things, extremely inconvenient for people who live in most of our zip codes. But I think, we have to dance with the guy who brung us, and so right now we have a severe restriction, and I think that that the interpretation by the administrator was correct. I do think, though, it might go on the to-do list of things that that could be addressed countywide.
Ms. Arthurs? Oh, I saw Ms. Arthur's hand first.
I agree with Ms. Freshman, and I think it's something that not could be, but should be probably addressed with the county board if they're doing it on the Pike. I mean, they'll throw anything on the Pike, it seems, these days, and that's a whole separate issue since I live on the Pike. But I think that this is, I agree. I think our hands are tied right now, but I do think that you guys need to bring this up to somebody on the board. I think this is, it's not right. I don't like that. I don't like that. I agree with the zoning administrator. I think that this really, sorry, no offense, Arloba, but I just don't see any way around it right now. But I feel for you guys, and I think it sucks.
Mr. Melnick.
So I'm in agreement with everything my colleagues are saying on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I think this goes to policy, and I think the reading of the ordinance, while I'm sure it's very hard to put together tables, that are understandable, that are comprehensive, and then it's strung together with text, and but I think we are dealing with policy here, and I think it's the Board of Zoning, the zoning administrator was correct, all things considered, and that if we were to just disregard what we're hearing about this, then so we actually don't have the power to base our decision on we don't follow, we don't think the purpose and intent of the policy is right because it's there, and so we're bound to follow it. So that's why I think there was a correct decision by the zoning administrator.
Motion?
Motion, please.
I move in the case V11703-21-APP-1, the Board of Zoning Appeals uphold the decision of the zoning administrator.
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick. Any other discussion? I do want to tell the applicant that the written material that they presented and their arguments and their references were very interesting and very instructive, and very, very well put together, and very helpful. Unfortunately, they weren't completely persuasive, but I think but we all agree that it wasn't clear, but we believe that the zoning administrator did walk through the rationale correctly. Mr. Bibble, it's really not your turn to talk anymore, but
I just want to say thank you, but that's all.
That's fine. That's just fine. If there's no further discussion, I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to uphold the zoning administrator's decision passes 5-0. Thank you very much and good luck with your business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next case, Mr. Who is up? Mr. Blake? Mr. Bowen? Ms.
Yes.
Rizzi?
It is Mr. Bowen right now.
Mr. Bowen, okay.
Our next case is V-11704-21-VA-1. It is a variance request by Michael Hoffman on behalf of Jorge Campos of AZ Properties, Inc., the owner, to permit a total lot coverage of 35.2% instead of 32% as required for a one-family detached dwelling without a qualifying front porch or detached rear garage in the R10 zoning district regarding a new 3-story one-family detached dwelling in the R10 zoning district on the premises known as 1211 20th Street South. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached resolution denying the variance. An alternative resolution and conditions have been provided should the BZA see fit to approve the application as advertised. I will note that there is supplemental material for this case that came in after the application packet was assembled and printed. And I'll also note that we have an additional speaker signed up to speak on this case.
Okay, Mr. Bowen, would you describe the supplemental material?
Supplemental material for this case is online commentary submitted by a neighbor.
Okay. Any questions for staff? All right, let's hear from the applicant. Is it Mr. Hoffman here? Who is speaking on this item?
We have Mr. Hoffman is the application file. I believe I also saw Mr. Kim, who I've communicated with on this project previously.
Is who wishes to speak on this item? We're going to move on if nobody wants to speak on this.
I wonder if we lost people with our last one.
Yeah, I do see Leap Kim in the attendees list. And
I do see Mr. A little confused. He's not what his role exactly is.
Do we not have either Hoffman or Campos
No.
in the part? Okay, well, that's easy. I move.
We're gonna have to move this forward if nobody speaks up. We're gonna defer it.
Well, I prefer to deny it, but I'll defer it.
Well, typically,
No, I get it.
you know, we give them a second chance. But this
Okay.
definitely has issues that we would want to discuss with the applicant before we. Mr. Bowen?
I would just ask that since we do have a speaker signed up for this case, they may wish to speak even in a potential deferral.
That's fine, and we can also put any questions or concerns we have into the record. Since there's no applicant, we're going to move on to the speaker, and that's Harriet Palace. Are you here? Are you here and muted? I don't. Ms. Palace, are you with us?
We do have a new attendee who is joining the meeting. Perhaps this is one of our applicants or our speaker. I'm admitting them now.
All right.
Hello, this is Leap Kim with Greenway.
All right, Mr. Kim, you are neither the applicant nor the owner. Who?
I'm the applicant. Mr. Hoffman is actually an employee of Greenway Engineering, and I'm the principal of the office.
Okay, do we have paperwork on that?
I believe Mr. Bowen and I have been in communication, and I'm included in the application.
We need something from the owner indicating that you are authorized to speak. Do we have that?
Mr. Campos authorized Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Kim.
But who authorized Mr. Campos?
Oh, that was the permit authorization.
Yeah. We need some indication that Mr. Campos has authorized you to handle this.
I believe Mr. Campos has provided has included me in the application, or as far as the disclosure statement.
Where would you see that? We're searching too.
Yes, I'm searching as well, Madam Chair.
There's a statement of justification, but that's not an authorization. I don't think there is one.
I don't see one, Miss.
No.
I forwarded it to Mr. Bowen on November 1st, and I can forward it back to him again right now.
Let's see.
Wait, is this application notarized by a family member?
I'm not entirely sure of Miss Juanita Campos' relationship with Jorge Campos.
I certainly hope that she's not a family member, because that's not okay.
There is a receipt at the end of the package that gives Michael Hoffman at Greenway Engineering to provide consent for the owner, Kim.
Where?
That's outrage.
You can't, we need something from Mr. Campos, not from Mr.
Oh, okay, from Campos. Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but were you able to, Mr. Bowen, were you able to receive something from Mr. Kim?
No, not logged into my email on this computer, so I will check my Outlook on my phone. So just
Okay.
one moment, please.
Sure.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Freshman.
the last page of the use permit, it says consent by the property owner for Kim and Hoffman.
It's signed by Mr. Kim.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Okay, never mind.
We tried.
I would like to suggest, given all the confusion, that we defer to January. I don't think this case is ready.
And I will say that in terms of the emails that I received on November 1st, it appears to be the same affidavit of permit authorization that we discussed previously. Sorry, packet.
And that is which one?
If you're looking at the supplemental material, it should be about page 10 of the packet.
Is it from Mr. Kim?
It is from Jorge Campos, It's the affidavit of permit authorization.
And who does he authorize?
We have Jorge Camp. I can perhaps share my screen.
Okay. Affidavit of permit authorization.
Is it the variance or the?
Okay, but that, oh, I see right there. There's two names on that. And is this is for inspection services, right? This is for the building permit?
I believe we have used such authorization forms previously for other BZA cases.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Let's for the moment go with that. But it would be better if it was actually for zoning and not for building inspection.
Can I reserve the right to discuss the notary at some point? I would like some clarification that Juanita is not related to Mr. Campos. That's kind of a problem and does disqualify notaries if that is the case. Then it
Okay.
wouldn't be notarized.
Madam Chair, so I agree with Ms. Arthurs on that.
All right. Mr. Kim.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you like to speak to this application?
Yes, really the initial variance request was to seek relief for the lot coverage requirement pursuant to the residential R10 district that this project resides in.
Mm-hmm.
As noted in our statement of justification, the existing lot currently does not meet the minimum lot geometry as defined in the Arlington County Code for the R10 lot. So therefore, we have a slightly increased lot coverage as opposed to what is required. And in discussions with Blake and staff prior to this engagement and this meeting here tonight, we've discussed the potential of potentially modifying the architecture to create a true defined front porch pursuant to Arlington County Code, which would then create a condition where we can make some minor modifications to the architecture to kind of really absolve us of this variance request. Based on communications and as well as the preliminary staff report, we kind of had a suspicion that we would be denied tonight. So we've been in coordination with the client and the architect and are prepared to move forward, assuming that it is denied with some modified architecture to accommodate some of these lot coverage requirements and to be able to meet these pursuant to current code.
Would you
January.
Yeah, but the question is if you will you still also be needing a use permit for
yes, we will
placement?
still be, yes, that's correct. We will still be requesting the use permit as we believe that that does have staff support to help modify some of the setback requirements specific to the side yard to allow for window well egress, as well as ability to tie in a retaining wall to the existing retaining walls that currently exist in the side setbacks on either side of this property.
I would advise you, if you are going to do something that requires coming back to the BZA, that you fulfill our request to get neighbor feedback. Because that was missing in this application.
No, that's understood. And the applicant has made a couple of efforts for neighborhood outreach, and we've provided, I believe, certified mail receipts provided by the client with respect to that effort. And to my knowledge, to date, we have not received any feedback.
So it may, just so you know, if you've listened to the cases before this, or, people go door to door and talk to their neighbors to get this feedback. Simply sending something and getting no response is not not sufficient unless there really is some kind of a extenuating circumstance. I have a question for Mr. Bowen. Mr. Bowen, one of the, in the supplemental material we received, it said that the neighbor across the street did not receive certified letter notification. Do you know from whom they did not receive notification? Is this from the county or for the applicant?
I do not know that offhand, Madam Chair. I can look into that.
Yeah, it just says they were excluded from receiving the certified letter notification, but it doesn't say which source.
The county does not typically send certified mail to
Right.
any of our outreach efforts when we're doing our public notice.
Right, and because that, I'm looking at the applicants. It appears the applicant sent certified letters to 3 neighbors, but did not send, and one of the ones across the street is maybe the one that said they didn't receive theirs. But I'm just letting the applicant know that it's all properties surrounding the site, not just next door and in front. So there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at a minimum. So are you, this is Mr. Kim, do you feel you don't need the variance? We should just deny the variance tonight and you'll just come back with a use permit?
I believe the use permit is next on the agenda, but that's correct. We will not be seeking the variance based on the preliminary staff report that was provided. And as coordinated with our client and the architect, we believe that we can make certain modifications to the architecturals and building plans to be able to not require the variance, as we believe we can fall under the lot coverage and building coverage requirements.
All right, great. Is there a motion to deny this variance?
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
So if I could, I don't know that whether there would be a distinction between us denying the application or the applicant withdrawing it. If it's a distinction without a difference, and maybe the staff could address that.
At this point, we would typically probably recommend withdrawing if we hadn't done any of our, drafting the agenda, writing the staff report. At this point, the applicant would not be entitled to a refund per se. So functionally speaking, I don't know that there would be a difference right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, the request for withdrawal would come from the applicant, correct? And we don't have such a request before
Correct.
us.
We would typically get.
I think
Okay.
in the interest of moving on, I'd like to make a motion for denial.
Ms.
Since
Freshman?
it's with the agreement of the applicant.
Okay.
I move Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the attached proposed resolution denying variance V-11704-21-VA-1.
I second.
I'll second.
Oh, who do I have for a second?
Torcha.
Ms. Clark. Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Clark. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. So the variance has been denied. And now, Mr. Bowen, would you call the use permit, associated use permit?
You're on mute.
Got pretty far into that mute. The next case on the agenda is V-11704-21-UP-1, a use permit request by Michael Hoffman on behalf of Jorge Campos of AZ Properties, Inc., the owners, to permit a left side setback of 4.4 feet to the window well from the left side property line instead of 5 feet as required, regarding a new 3-story, 1-family detached dwelling in the Arlington zoning district on the premises known as 1211 20th Street South. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with condition. An alternative resolution of denial has been provided should the BZA see fit to deny the associated variance in case V-11704-21-VA-1, without which the current structures cannot be built. Please note that there are supplemental materials for this case that have come in after the application packets were assembled and printed. And please also note that we have additional speakers signed up for this case, which is Harriet Palas again.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bowen, this use permit was dependent on the variance being approved?
Yes, and it was also specific to the drawings that were provided at that time. And if the design is changing, we should redraft the advertisement language.
So can this be deferred separately?
Yes, we could defer it and accept new drawings and do new analysis when they come in.
Okay. Ms. Freshman?
Given the willingness of the applicant to withdraw the variance and to redesign, I would recommend deferral to January 12th, 22. I think it's a bigger effort than can be made in a couple of weeks.
Okay, just before we, that was a motion, right?
It can be, but if the speaker has appeared.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if the speaker has appeared. Has Ms. Palas appeared? I don't see it. Go ahead, Ms. Freshman.
I don't see her either.
Okay. In case V-11704-21-UP1, I move the case be deferred to the January 12th, 2022 BZA hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Mr. Melnick to defer this item to January 12th, BZA 2022 BZA hearing. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair, would staff reach out and ask for the letters of support or reaffirming that the neighbor contact was followed up on?
Ms. Clark, we can work with the applicant to request additional neighborhood outreach efforts.
Typically, when we do a deferral, they'll get a new set of letters from county, right?
Mm-hmm.
And placards, right? So
Correct.
they will get that. So it's just a good point, Ms. Clark.
They would still need new drawings though before they could do the outreach theoretically.
Absolutely.
So it's still, given the holidays, it's still a pretty tight timeline.
It is. Any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to defer this case to the January BZA hearing is approved 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Kim.
Thank you.
Will you call the next item?
Yes, Madam Chair. The very next case is V-11705-21-UP-1, which was approved in the group motion at the start of the hearing.
Okay.
So the next case after that I can call, that is V-11706-21-UP-1. This is a use permit request by Daniel Blair and Kelly Brook, the owners, to permit a street setback of 20.6 feet to the main building wall, 19 feet to the main building eave, 12.7 feet to the porch, 11.3 feet to the porch eave, instead of 25 feet to the main dwelling wall, 21 feet to the main building eave and porch, 19.5 feet to the porch eave from North Cleveland Street as required, and to permit a right side setback of 6.4 feet to the porch, 5.6 feet to the porch eave from the side property line instead of 8 feet to the porch, 5 feet to the porch eave as required, and to permit a separation of 11.2 feet between the wall of the existing detached accessory building and the wall of the new main dwelling instead of 15 feet as required, regarding a new 2-story one-family detached dwelling within an existing detached accessory building in the R6 zoning district on the premises known as 1608 North Cleveland Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the use permit request with conditions.
All right, any questions for Mr. Bowen or Mr. Rissy? I had just one. So the plat that's the hardest to read is the proposed one, correct? It's the small in our packet. It's fairly small, right?
I believe that is correct, Madam Chair.
What I was looking for was the dimension between the house and the garage. Is that called out on that drawing?
Is this the current measurement you're speaking of, or the proposed measurement?
The proposed.
I'm not sure if it's. Let me check that.
I don't think so.
Uh-uh.
I don't see where it's being measured.
Mm-mm.
It does look like though that at least the back stairs to the back lot are 23.9. So.
But it is
give
a
or take
measurement it's a measurement we're being asked to adopt.
Right. I don't see it on there.
Yes, I believe, Madam Chair and other BZA members, that our zoning plan reviewer certified that measurement with our applicants. They may be able to speak to that point if they are present.
Okay. All right. Are Mr. Blair or Miss Brooks with us? I see Miss Brooks is in the list. Miss Brooks, go ahead. You may join us.
Yeah, hi. Yes, the dimension
You're
is
not
on the
Miss
plan.
Brooks. Are you?
I am Miss Brooks.
Okay.
I'm Mr. Blair. Sorry.
There you go. I see. I heard your voice before I saw your picture. Go ahead.
So the existing setback to the accessory structure, it should be on page 20 of 42 of your report. I don't know what size printout you're looking at, but the drawings were done on the scale in 11 by 17, and the existing setback is 10'9", and we are pushing the rear face of the building away from the accessory structure to give it a dimension of 11'3".
So what we're trying to do is find a drawing in our packet that shows that dimension.
It's the dimension plan.
Let's see if we've got, it's not on the plat.
No, because this was a last minute request from Mr. Bowen for clarification.
Let's find that. I don't think I'm going through here and I don't think I have it. Does anybody else see it?
Mr. Bowen, can you share it on your screen?
Yes, give me just one moment, please.
It's page 21 of the packet.
Sorry, it's taking a little bit longer than expected, but just give me one more moment.
Mr. Brooks or Ms. Blair, would you like to, you're answering a specific question. Is there more that you'd like to add while Mr. Bowen is looking that up?
I'm not really sure. What would you like to hear? I mean, we're kind of surprised that we're in this position. We're in, like I said, in the motion or the letter that this is not where we were planning to be when we first brought the property, but we're looking forward to moving forward on the project if given the opportunity.
So this is new construction then, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, we were planned to renovate it.
So in new construction, you have options, right?
We're opting to keep the existing footprint and the character of the house because we fell in love with the house and we prefer to have a smaller dwelling So we are just proposing to put it back on in the character of the house that you're seeing.
So it's the same footprint. And that's why you're asking for setback relief, because your existing house
Correct.
was in this location.
Correct. As we stated, there was basically two options for relief on this: was the setback averaging, or have the house catch fire and burn down and replace it. Those were the two options to replace it, per the zoning ordinance.
Right.
Which we wanted to, obviously, as from the orientation of the street, the setback averaging isn't an option, and obviously we don't want to do this, even consider the second option.
Yeah. Did you find, Mr. Bowen, were you able to find what we were asking about? You're muted.
Yes, Madam Chair. Is it on the screen? Can you see it? I have it pulled up and it looks like
All right. And where's the dimension to the accessory structure?
It's the clouded dimension.
Is the clouded dimension 11 3.5 inches?
Yep.
Okay, got it. All right. So, Mr. Bowen, all of these drawings become part of the submittal?
Yes, Madam Chair. And this one was already in the packet. So this one submitted.
So even though it's not on the plat, it is part of the, okay. All right. Any other questions about the dimensions? You have neighborhood support, but you have some neighbors that are concerned about some things. Did you see their comments?
Yes.
Yeah, the stormwater management, and we've already applied for the LDA, and we are exceeding the minimum for stormwater management to try to address their concerns, and it's also a concern of ours. We know this is a area that has a high water table, and the present site has some issues because the lot's compacted.
All right, so the footprint is the same, correct?
Yes.
And there will be improved stormwater management.
Correct.
So it should make the situation better, not worse?
Correct.
Did I see that there's also a green roof?
Yes, we're proposing a green roof on the front porch.
This should help with stormwater.
And we're also, it's not on this set, but on the permit set, we're looking to actually add a second planter box on the north side of the building.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? No, it wasn't their first choice, but looks like it may help a little bit. Ms. Freshman?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
I move the Board of Zoning Appeals approve the attached proposed resolution approving use permit V-11706-21-UP1, subject to the conditions listed.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion made by Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Arthurs. Is there any discussion? I will just comment, I appreciate the neighbor's concern, but I do think that the stormwater requirements today are more stringent than they were in the past, and that this may help the situation rather than hurt it. If there are no other comments, I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion to approve the use permit carries 5-0. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a lot of work ahead of you.
Yes, we do. We're looking forward to it.
Mr. Bowen, will you call the next item, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next item is case number V-11707-21-VA-3. This is a variance request by Dwight McNeil on behalf of Ian and Samantha Pham, the owners, to permit a main building footprint of 5,038 square feet instead of 3,136 square feet as permitted for a one-family detached dwelling in the R8 zoning district with a qualifying front porch regarding a 1- and 2-story rear additions to an existing one-family dwelling with an existing main building footprint of 4,869 square feet in the R8 zoning district on the premises known as 1620 North Inglewood Street. Staff recommends that the board adopt the attached proposed resolution granting the variance request with conditions. I'll ask that the BZA please note that supplemental material for this case was submitted after the application packets were assembled and printed. I'll also note that we do have a representative from zoning enforcement, Ms. Tracy O'Connor, here to answer any questions that might come up based on some of the neighborhood feedback that's been submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. Any questions for staff? Just wanted to note that we have an applicant in the application. The applicant is Dwight McNeil and identifies himself as the property owner, and I think that's not correct. I don't think it's correct.
The application says that the Pham is the owner.
Right. So that's
McNeil's the applicant.
right. McNeil is the applicant. And what else? I have a just want to. This is a variance request, and it's asking for the current house is already larger than what would be permitted today, and the request is for even a larger house. Mr. Bowen, do I understand that staff feels that the hardship on this site is that there is already a big house?
I may defer to Mr. Rissy, who wrote this report. He might have the more specific insights as to his rationale when writing it.
All right. Did you hear my question?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would say that the fact that the house was built in a size that became non-conforming when the county added the main building footprint cap is the hardship for this property. Once the county made the changes that added the main building footprint cap, that was the point at which this house was no longer able to do any horizontal addition to the footprint of the house. Prior to the main building footprint cap being added, they were still well under the regulations for lot coverage at the time, and so could do an addition of the size that they're currently requesting or even larger. But it was only when the county imposed the main building footprint cap on the existing structure that was over the limit imposed that they became non-conforming and lost the ability to have any addition to the footprint of the house.
So that's a yes.
That is a long yes.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff?
It feels like the gigantic size of the lot in and of itself, it creates a problem.
All right. Do we have, is Mr. McNeil or anyone from the family with us tonight?
We are.
We are. I hear you. It'll take a minute for us to see you.
This is Anne. I'm
Ian.
Samantha Pham. We're the property owners. I think Dwight is here too. He can probably speak more to the technical issues in terms of what we're trying to do to renovate. But
Do you have anything you'd like to say on behalf of your application?
so yes, it is true that we purchased a very large house and effectively are trying to make it marginally larger. I will say, so when we bought the property last year, we did not realize that it was non-conforming. I did not realize, I don't even think Dwight realized that there is a cap on the footprint of your house. What is it? It's like 4,800 square feet, I think, right now. So the previous owners added this very large, very beautiful pool house that is attached to the house. We realize now, I mean, that is why the house is now non-conforming. That, and they added a sunroom across the back. And when we were looking to do the renovation, we tried to stay within the original footprint. My understanding is that because the house is non-conforming, we cannot even like change the sunroom. We can only, I guess, update it or like leave it as is. We can't build on top of it. We can't use the existing footprint for anything. And what we are trying to do is obviously we could, I guess, tear down part of the house. We looked at that too to try to make the pool house actually an accessory building, which is the other option. But they really, they just did a really good job of integrating it into the house. I think that it would really detract from kind of the overall like street front appearance of the house if we did that, because we would kind of have to take this left side addition of the house off, basically. And what we are trying to do is kind of maintain the integrity of the house, because we bought it because we like it. I mean, I think to buy this house, you have to like old houses, but we're just trying to update it. It is not, it was built with like a 1948, I think, family in mind. We are only the third owners, I guess, of it. The previous owners did make some updates, obviously, but the house has very, very large formal areas and a very tiny kitchen and family room. What we are trying to do is kind of maintain that traditional feeling of the house. I think Dwight has come up with like a really great plan for that, but we also are trying to fit our family. Like we have a large family and obviously we spend a lot of time in the kitchen, the family space. Also, the previous owners did install an elevator so that they could age in place. We will be taking the elevator out because we have 3 small children and it poses a bit of a safety concern. Like the house is really not meant for small children. There's a pool, there's an elevator. And we're trying to also make plans so that either when my family visits, my parents are older, that we have guest space on the main floor, and also so that as we age, hopefully we can stay here. So we are trying to squeeze an extra bedroom on the main floor so that we don't have to reinstall an elevator or move out, I guess. I do think, I mean, like we are underneath, I think, the lot coverage maximum. It's just we're asking for relief on the footprint. And really what we're trying to do is almost just replace the sunroom. I think we're adding an extra 168 square feet. And that's mainly, yeah, so that's mainly because we're trying to put the kitchen in the back. And I don't know if Dwight could speak to that more, but my understanding from talking to our builder also is that because the house is old, I think the Grahams did their addition in like the 80s, it also allows us to kind of update the plumbing by kind of adding this new addition on the back so that they don't have to, they can just kind of add in new plumbing through the back versus trying to completely reconfigure everything inside. Because the house is definitely, it is very solid. It is also kind of built just like bricks, like all of the supporting walls, load-bearing walls run front to back. And so it's really hard to open up the space without compromising the structure, as I understand it. I mean, I told Dwight just take out all the walls and he said no. That's not possible. So this is where we're at.
All right. Any questions for the applicants? Let's ask an obvious question. Can you knock off 169 square feet?
I mean, I don't know how much that is. I think we tried. I don't know. I'm assuming that that's just like the extra 2 feet beyond. I don't think so. Though I think a lot of the size was dictated by the fact that the second floor has no hallways. So we're trying to divide it into like 2 rooms with like a normal size hallway in between, without being like some weird, creepy, like interior hallway. I don't know.
Is Mr. McNeil your architect?
He is our architect, yes.
Yeah, maybe he can answer that question.
Yes, I think if we eliminated the 168 square feet beyond the existing footprint, there's still the issue of utilizing the existing sunroom space, which you can see in your picture back there. We can't build on top of glass walls, so we'd have to take the glass walls down and build up from there, and that becomes its own issue in need of a variance.
Well, I don't follow that.
Well, maybe Mr. Rissy can explain
No,
that.
I follow. You'll need a variance regardless of what size you build. You'll need a variance for the existing footprint. Is that correct, Mr. Rissy?
That is correct.
So that's why we're getting a variance. Is even if it was the existing, you will need a variance. We understand that. The question is, why do we need to make the house even bigger?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the existing layout of the house. It was a very clever design in the 40s for a house-proud couple who wanted grand rooms. They're large in footprint, but the ceiling height is like 8.5 feet. And it's a lot of fireplaces, grand stair in the middle, and to preserve any of that causes a lot of weird things to happen in plan that we're trying to avoid by pushing it out an extra 2 feet. And we have avoided that by doing that.
Mr. Melnick, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So I've heard with the applicants and their architect, and with the conversation that the existing footprint wouldn't even work. But I noticed in the staff report, it's saying that there's no addition that the applicants can propose by right other than an addition exclusively above the existing walls. So it seems like the staff is saying that the existing footprint would work as long as the building is above the existing walls. Am I reading that right? Because I've heard some talk about that not being the case.
Well, that's part of the discussion I've had with people in zoning that I mentioned earlier. Building on top of, you can go up from an existing wall. But in the case of this sunroom, which is space we absolutely need to make this plan work, we can't preserve the greenhouse and build a second floor on top of it.
Okay.
But you can build in the existing footprint.
There's, Mr. Rissy can perhaps speak to that again, because that's part of the technical issue about going up. Information I've gotten is that we need a variance if we want to utilize that sunroom space. And
we understand that, but we're trying to figure out why. Let Mr. Rissy, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to try and clarify. So I think that everyone is actually saying correct things. So the applicants would have the ability to build above non-conforming walls as provided for in Article 16. Mm-hmm. But what Mr. McNeil is saying is that that theoretical allowance isn't practically viable for the sunroom area because it's all windows. That allowance says you have to go above the existing walls. And here they can't preserve the existing glass walls and build above that. They could build above the other walls of the main building with a third floor, but that's really not what we're talking about.
So, Mr. Rissy, if looking at this picture,
Yes.
if they built on the footprint of this sunroom, are they over the existing footprint?
Yes, since they're over the existing footprint, they do not have the ability to tear down the sunroom and rebuild in that footprint.
Why?
Because you don't have the ability to replace a nonconformity. You only have the ability to modify it, keeping the original walls and building above it.
So but in terms of square feet, what happens? Does that, does that keep them at their original building footprint? I mean, I understand we have to give them a variance. I understand that. Even if they build on the existing footprint. So if they build in the area of the sunroom.
Yes.
Does that put them over 160, over their original number?
The original number is already over, so yes, rebuilding that sunroom would require a variance.
Right, but does it require that extra 169 feet?
No, they could.
Yes, that's okay.
Smaller addition that is the same size as the current structure.
Yeah, that's what we're getting at. We understand that you're going to need a variance to do anything here because your house is already non-conforming. The question is that extra 169 feet that even makes it even bigger than your footprint now.
But I would argue that extra 169 square feet, or if it's 168, makes the house functional.
Yeah, so it comes down to the standard for a variance is very high. It's not like a use permit. It has to, you are, I mean, Mr. Melnick will speak to the standards. You have to show that there's a hardship, that there's an economic hardship, that there's something so unique about your situation.
I mean, I would argue that this is unique because, frankly, I don't think many houses in Arlington have this problem. Part of the problem is brought on by ourselves because rather than tearing down the house and building a brand new building that's like, I mean, obviously houses in Arlington now are going up to like 10,000 square feet inside. We're trying to preserve the original, what was called like the big house in the neighborhood. And we are trying to make it work. And I think that the additional 162 square feet, basically what we're doing is I think we're just expanding the back wall to like where those brick stairs are instead of like the back wall of the sunroom. It's basically where the stairwell is, I think. So, I mean, it is making it larger. I would say, I don't know that Arlington is like the greatest gauge for what's reasonable in terms of housing, but we're still, I don't think we're asking for anything extremely crazy. The fact that they attached the pool house and then 20 years later, Arlington changed the zoning rules. I mean, I do think that created a hardship for anybody who decided to buy the house.
So, we have standards that we have to follow. So we have to work through our rationale based on the standards that we're required to follow. It's not a judgment call for us. It is, or what makes a better house. It is, can we adhere to the standard that's been established? Any other questions for the applicants? So this case had supplemental material from your neighbors that came in late. Did you see the packet of supplemental material that came in?
We have, I believe one of them is a letter. The house kind of like towards the back of us is a group home. And so we had to mail our information material to the owner in Chantilly. And so he mailed us back his letter of support late, which we submitted to Blake. And then I also believe that our neighbors across the streets added another statement.
Yeah, I'm checking it right now. Your neighbors across the street gave sort of conditional approval.
So they also then signed
Mm-hmm.
the original statement of support we gave them. So I'm not entirely sure.
All right. And then you have some neighbors behind you. Were able to talk to them?
Was that so the neighbors on 16th Street, I stopped by, we dropped off material, and then I stopped by again. They were never home. But we were able to speak with Mrs. Lamb on 17th Street,
17th.
Barbara Lamb. She called us on Sunday night because she does not actually live in the house. She lives in Charlottesville. That was her childhood home. So she had just gotten the letter, and she expressed that she was concerned she was not going to be able to send the letter that we dropped off in time. And I told her that it was fine. Her husband recently passed, so I just told her, don't worry about it. She was in support. I mean, she's a very nice lady, but we were able to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've talked to everybody except for that family on.
5, 5, 6. All right. And then 5516, 17th Street. Do you have?
So that is Mrs. Lamb. That is the woman I spoke
That's
with.
Mrs. Lamb. Okay.
Yeah. It was 5569 that we never heard back from.
Yeah.
They never answered the door. I don't know if they were home or not.
Got it. Got it. All right. Colleagues, you can take the picture down so I can see folks.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Melnick.
Okay, so I'll start out. As you were saying, it's a very tough standard for a variant, because you have to ask, is there an unreasonable restriction, if the ordinance is enforced, or is there a hardship? And with this sort of case, and we've seen this before, where the argument is, well, the house was it was so big, at the time the ordinance passed, and the hardship is now that it's in, it doesn't comply with the ordinance. And I'm just, while I sympathize with people in that position, just like in other cases, we're dealing with the policy of the county board. They had certain reasons for doing, for passing this ordinance. And, I just haven't seen a preponderance of the evidence showing just the hardship. And also, one of the criteria is a condition or situation of the property is not so general or recurring as to make it reasonably practical to formulate a regulation which can be adopted. In other words, it's as such that there could be another zoning ordinance, to apply to this. And staff was unaware of how many of these large properties have this issue. But just because, it's a large lot in a large house, I just don't see that as a hardship.
So, would your position be that even rebuilding on the existing footprint is not permitted?
No, I think, I understand what's being said about not building on glass walls and that sort of thing, except, I just, even with that, I don't see a hardship.
Okay.
I don't think that, the unreasonably restrict use or the hardship criteria or the general or recurring criteria have been met here.
Any other thoughts?
Could I speak to that?
I think the discussion's with the board right now. Ms. Freshman?
Yeah, I think this is difficult because my initial reaction was, well, it's a ginormous house on a ginormous lot, and that's pretty unusual, although I can't say for certain how many similarly situated properties we have. But, and I think it's kind of interesting that the staff has rationale for finding hardship, which is also unusual. And I'm sympathetic to how the applicants want to try to make their home more livable. So they're trying to make changes mostly within the existing structure. But in the end, it is, the standard is very high, and there's a reasonable use of the property still existing, and modifications that can be made to the existing dwelling. It may not be what they, their ideal modifications, but typically one of the standards we have to meet is that the hardship makes the uses impossible or unreasonable. So while I'm sympathetic to the applicants, I think that the standard for variance is not met.
Any other comments? Do we want to try a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Melnick?
Okay, so in case V 1170721VA3, I move that the Arlington County Board of Zoning Appeals deny the application in this case.
Second.
All right, we have a motion made by Mr. Melnick, seconded by Ms. Freshman to deny the variance. Is there any further discussion? I will call the roll. Mr. Melnick?
Aye.
Ms. Freshman?
Aye.
Ms. Clark?
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. It is with regret that I think we all make this motion, but
it is unfortunate. I'll be honest. We will probably end up tearing the house down.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's sad.
Yeah.
For Arlington, because it is it's kind of like it was the builder's home of Tara Leeway, but
I understand you guys have very high standards, but we weren't. I mean, as you see in the pictures, we weren't asking for much. It was just a bump out of the existing sunroom, which we can't build on anyway, unless we had a variance. So now we're back to square one, or square zero, actually. And the hardship is costing us time and money. I mean, that's a hardship.
we understand that it's difficult. We understand that it is difficult, and you'll have to look at your options.
We were.
I think that we have
yes.
looked at our options because if we could have gotten away without the variance process,
yeah, we
would have. And it just seems ridiculous that if they had made their pool house like an accessory dwelling, then the house would be fine.
And we had been very patient with this whole process. We were just trying to keep the house character and you know, it fit with
The
the
neighborhood.
neighborhood, the Mormon church next to it, the other church next to it. And, you know, and again, the rooms upstairs are very, very large. You didn't have a hallway. So you
I
need
know.
to have that
We're,
out.
we're going to have to move on to the next item on our agenda. Well, we appreciate and you know, your disappointment. Mr. Rissy, Mr. Bowen, who's in charge?
Well, I'm sitting here, so can I count for anything?
I think we have to read the rest of the agenda.
Yeah, I'll note for the record that the next case on the agenda, V-11708-21-UP-1, was approved with a group motion at the beginning of the meeting. And the last item on the agenda, V-11709-21-UP-3, was also approved with a group motion at the beginning of the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Rissy. The next
Can I move
item
approval of the minutes?
of our minutes, but don't all leave as soon as they're approved because we have a couple
No,
of things.
okay. I move approval of the minutes of October 13th, 2021.
I second.
Motion made by Ms. Arthurs, Ms. Freshman, seconded by Ms. Arthurs to approve them, to adopt the minutes. I'll call the roll. Mr. Melnick,
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. They're adopted 5-0. We should approve some dates for next year. I sent some dates around that Mr. Bowen had proposed. He was proposing going to the second Wednesday of the month. There's some advantage to that, just in terms of our remembering when we meet, but wanted to run that by you guys. And whether you're prepared to do the whole calendar, or let me ask Mr. Rissy a question. And that has to do with in-person.
No.
I mean, if you know, if we're virtual, then we just can do what we want to do, right? But if, you know, and we could adapt the whole year right now, but if we have to work around the board and the planning commission schedule, then we may not ought to adopt too far in advance. What do you think?
So I'll say a couple things. First, we've reached out and we don't have calendars yet to work around for the county board or planning commission. So those will be forthcoming and we'll share them as soon as we can to make decisions around them. That the other part of that question, I believe, was whether we've had any guidance on whether we're going to continue virtual meetings. And the best I can say is I don't know past the end of the year. The guidance we are currently under is the same that we've had for the last couple of months, which is essentially the county board has gone back to in-person meetings and they will give us 30 days notice when they expect us to do the same. We've been given a little bit of, I guess it's not written, but spoken guidance from the county manager and one of his county manager chats that he didn't expect that we would go back to in-person meetings for boards and commissions at least this calendar year, but no one has said anything beyond the calendar year. So we're in the period where we're just gonna have to sit and wait, and when they tell us it's go time, we go.
So we deferred an item to January 12th, I think.
Yes, you did.
So we're meeting that day.
We should do that one.
We should do that one. Do you need us to go any deeper into the year?
So right now we don't have any meetings that applicants can apply for. We've run out. We've already set the agenda and actually advertised the agenda for December already. So right now we're taking in applications and we're not able to tell applicants when they'll be heard. So it'd be good to at least have January if we're going to have a January, because there's been years when we haven't had January. So if we are agreeing to a January, it'd be good to set that. If you don't want to meet in January, it would probably be good to set a February, just so we have a date that we can tell people who are applying when their cases will be heard.
And if you already have enough people, or you already have cases to put on a January, then we should probably do it.
We already deferred one to that month, so.
Right.
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. We were under the impression that staff did not want to meet in January, and that's why we traditionally didn't meet in January. If staff likes that, we were kowtowing to staff, right? So if staff wants to meet in January, I think we're fine with meeting in January.
I'll say staff has no grand illusions to go back to 20-something item agenda case loads in February. So yeah, we can do anything before that. I'm happy to do so.
All right. So do we just want to do 1 month at a time, or do we want to take a shot at February too?
I'll just say that I've put them on the entire year, and I'm fine with the second Wednesday. I've had to miss several civic association meetings because our association traditionally meets on the third Wednesday. And so I understand the issue with virtuals, and I'm hoping that if we can at least do a hybrid so that I never have to go back there. But that's just my personal, selfishness for preferring to have a meeting in my PJs. Or worse, not driving home from the courthouse at midnight.
That's what I don't want to do.
Yeah. So I think since we meet in the boardroom and they have the technical capabilities, I think it's indefensible not to at least allow a hybrid, but whatever. That's just on behalf of myself. You can, take that for what it's worth and share it. But I think we should at least do January and February. I mean, I think it's silly if we have to change the date and then there's re-advertising and there's or whatever. I mean, there will be fallout, but month to month is pretty difficult for everybody in planning, including applicants. So,
I agree.
I mean, personally, I had no problem with any of the dates, and I like the idea.
Me too. We can always change them if we adopt the whole year.
I like the second week. The third week is really hard for me work-wide. I'm really struggling the third week to get things done because real estate just seems to blow up in the middle of the month. So the second week is great for me, and I'm fine with all those dates for the rest of the year. Oh no, for next year.
Yeah.
I'm fine with the second Wednesday also.
Second muted.
Yeah. Mr. Melnick?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. So we usually are on vacation. We're usually on vacation the first few weeks of August. So that could be bad for me.
So
that's the only one that I was concerned about too.
But we can adjust or skip August.
That was going to say, often we have tried to skip August because that's a vacation month for a lot of people. So
yeah,
we could do an 11-month calendar if we wish to do, because it just happens that, my availability is usually the last 3 weeks of August rather than the early part. But August is problematic, and it means a heavier September.
But we can always, we were all pretty flexible this fall, and if we need to be again, we can all, work together and come up with a different date if we need to. And
so, hey, it's so funny. How could I forget? But I was planning on actually rotating off. So, so what am I talking about?
What?
You were.
So your schedule in August doesn't matter.
The BZA is so long that I'm just in the autopilot mode. But it's true that my term comes up at the March 7th. So who am I to talk about August?
Well, you may change your mind.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's sad.
Are you leaving voluntarily or involuntarily? Or
Oh,
do we know?
voluntarily.
Okay.
Well, you can still vote on the calendar because you're going to be here for a while.
Okay.
Part of it. So I say that I move the 2022 BZA calendar to include the second Wednesday of every month except August.
I'll second.
I'll call the roll. Mr. Melnick,
Aye.
Ms. Freshman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Arthurs,
Aye.
chair votes aye. I have one more small nit, and this is for staff. When we, and maybe we've brought this up before, when we do advertise, we advertise the cases, but we don't really advertise our agenda. If you know the difference, because after the cases are done, we have approval of minutes and often other admin stuff. And I'm always a little uncomfortable, you know, because it would imply that once we're done with the last case, we shut down. Do you see a problem adding to the end of our advertisements other admin or
Would you
other
say
minutes?
Adoption of minutes and other business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could add something. We can certainly add something. My only concern is really financial. We pay for for the newspaper advertisements, so I don't want to add a whole lot there.
No, just exactly what Ms. Freshman said. Approval, adoption of minutes and other business, just so that people know that, you know, we're still meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly.
Okay. Because sometimes we talk about really interesting, fun stuff. Maybe the public would want to listen in.
Oh, Lordy.
Of course,
I'm not
being recorded.
It is recorded.
I'm not 100% sure that I will be here. I will be on the call next month. It is my daughter's birthday on the 8th. So I likely will be spending time with my new 7-year-old.
Oh, in a bouncy house.
Okay.
Okay.
We still have a pretty good quorum. Okay, so the December agenda is advertised?
Yes, we have to do a special ad run because we added one to it tonight, but.
Okay. Oh, we did. Yeah. How many cases?
9, 10 with the addition.
10 with the addition.
Not bad.
No appeals?
No appeals.
Yippee.
All right.
Well, it's really like 7. 7 or 8.
With a group motion, it could be less than that.
Well.
Oh, yay. I like that. You know, I've now got a new pattern for how I do my work. And I keep a little note at the side and make sure that all the neighbors are there and everything's good. And because even if it's just 2 or 3, it really helps move things along.
I love it.
Like tonight, where we had to talk about the appeal for almost an hour and some other stuff, it helps keep us to a reasonable time.
So Patty is doing the same. Patty is also checking all that, and she's checking the application, and she's communicating with me.
Great.
So I compare her notes with your notes.
Okay, great.
And you know, there's the potential that she, you know, if you were missing something, that she can actually get it in.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying that for a while, you know, that if you get it in by Tuesday, you know, not Wednesday, but Tuesday.
Like the one missing neighbor or something.
Right.
Yeah.
On Tuesday, we could still maybe get it into the block approval. So I hope that starts to filter out that a complete application with no, you know, with all your neighbors and everything is actually
in your best interest.
It's in your best interest.
Yeah, you can be all done by 7:30. Seriously, I think that is compelling, you know, and it seems like things are going better than they used to. And I don't know if it's a combination of staff work reminding and, you know, our attempts to try to put it in the application and, but
instructions.
Even the ones that can't go quickly are often close to complete, like the last one where there were a couple of outstanding neighbors. I mean, there were obviously major other issues, but in that case, the feedback was pretty good. So people are getting better at that, I think, generally.
Mr. Rissy, do you have your hand up, or is that just you're waving good night?
No, actually, I had a question for the group while I have you. In years past, in January, we had done a work session together. I was wondering if there was interest in one of those in January, in addition to the meeting, which we already agreed that we're having.
Right.
And we don't need to come to a conclusion tonight. It's just a question I'd like to ask. We can figure out dates and all that later, but I was just wondering if there was a general desire for that.
I think that the question is there, you know, are there issues that we want to talk over an agenda? And so that's the assignment for you all, is to think about, you know, administrative things, but staff too, just things you want to talk over. And, you know, improvements or things like that. And I'll think it over, but everybody should think over if there's something that, you know, for the betterment of the BZA that we could hash out. And I think we've been able to keep these to about an hour. You know, if we know.
I would like to, yeah, if we do it, I think it would be great if it wasn't necessarily on the same night as the meeting.
Oh,
yeah.
No.
You know, I mean, because sometimes we've tried to do that and met when we were in person, we'd meet at 6 o'clock with cheese and crackers or something beforehand. And I think that just makes things too burdensome, too long, even if you're home. So, but yeah, I mean,
so let's go over what's happened this year. One question would be annual report.
Oh, we'll be working on that in December.
Okay.
Well,
So that's often, you know, may elicit topics too.
Yeah.
Our agenda having been completed, this meeting is adjourned.
Good night.
All right.
Happy
Good night,
Thanksgiving.